Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and welcome to our call today, Freelance Friday. We're going to talk about a topic that I know is interesting to lots of people who are over the age of 50 or turning 50 with respect to freelancing. You know, today we have all the craziness of the Great Resignation, where we've seen millions of people go back to work and decided that after a couple 3 years of pandemic that they're not going to do that anymore. You know, they enjoyed the freedom of working from home. They enjoyed the ability to work at their own pace for many of the jobs they did and that kind of thing, and they're just not going to do it. So lots of people wanting to move in that direction, but the minute they start to move in that direction, they start thinking about, do I have enough skills? How do I get clients? How do I deliver work? All those kind of things come into the mix. And from the time most people have originally heard about the concept of freelancing, which I heard about it the first time, I think when I was about 9 or 10 years old, we had a person that lived in our neighborhood that was a freelancer. And I asked my mom what that was all about. What's a freelancer? And she said it's a person that can't work well with others, so they have to work from home. And certainly the world of freelancing has changed since then. And as a photographer in my late teens, early 20s, I wound up doing lots of photography as kind of a side gig. And I was a freelancer. I became a freelancer when I was 20 years old. And I would weave it into my going to college and, you know, all the other things that I was doing at the time. And it usually meant that I would be photographing an event of one kind or a wedding or something like that from a friend of a friend. And but the hard part about that is getting the work. You know, you had to have a network. You had to know somebody that was getting married, or know somebody that was knew somebody that was getting married, or that kind of thing. So finding the jobs and the work to do is the most complicated thing, and that's number one on the list. Well, in the world we live in today, there are what are called job and project networks, and they have between, depending upon which ones you go on, thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of jobs on them every day. It used to be that you'd print up business cards if you wanted to be a freelancer, and then you would go out and pass them out at Chamber of Commerce meetings and Kiwanis Club meetings, and maybe walk the main street in your local town and pass things out to merchants and that kind of thing, and see if there was anything you could do for them as a freelancer. And it was, we used to describe it as the shoe leather approach to building your business. And of course, a lot of your time was very unproductive. Now you can go on to one of these networks and type in the kind of work you want to do. Like just recently, I typed in the word proofreading because proofreading is one of the ways that people like to get started on these networks, even if they don't want to ultimately do proofreading as a lifelong activity. It's good to go in and pick up a $20 job, $30 job, that kind of thing, just to get a feel for how these networks work. And so, they would go in and do those very simple jobs and see how the whole process worked. You know, the problem with going out and finding your own clients, not using a network like this, is that it's a lengthy process. You have to find somebody to talk to. You have to have conversations with them. Ultimately, you have to make a proposal with their agreement that, yes, there might be something you could do for them. You have to price it out, and then you have to deliver the work. And having these jobs available having hundreds of thousands of jobs available every single day takes all the guesswork out of that. You see a job that's posted, a freelance buyer says, "This is what I want done, and this is and so tell me why I should award this to you." Make a small proposal. Usually, proposals are 150 to 250 words, not pages. I know a lot of the proposals that I worked on in my career were thousands of pages. You know, they were for government or commercial contracts for IT systems and that kind of thing. And they were multi-millions of dollars, but you had to, tell them every single thing you were going to do for the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it was. Well, this is much easier. It's 150 to 250 words. And once you write that proposal, they want to know, okay, what are you going to charge me to do this? And they balance your proposal. They will look at a profile. It's a little bit like your resume, and we're going to talk more about that in the next item. And then they will look at the price that you've offered, and they will take all those three together. And most people that I teach think that they're going to have they're going to go for the lowest price here. That's what they're going to do, and that is not true. They go for what's called the best value. They look at your proposal. If they like that, they will then look at the equivalent of your resume, and if they like what they see there, then they will look at the price you're bidding for this, and they'll take all that into account and do that math problem in their head and select the person they think is best suited to do that job. And so that brings us to the second part of this, which is selling yourself. And having worked with lots of people and organizations that I have been in over the years, and hiring quite a number of people over the years, and managing salespeople and marketing people over the years, I know that most people aren't comfortable with selling themselves. They might be comfortable selling a company or a product or a service or that kind of thing, but selling yourself as a freelancer is selling yourself. And we don't want to have awkward conversations centered around what can you do for me, how do you do it, that kind of thing. And that's why this profile is so important. The great news on most of these networks, you're going to get hired by the person that reviews your profile. You're never going to have a conversation typically with that person. I mean, if they're hiring for a larger job, they might want to have an interview or something like that. But for doing little proofreading assignments, creating PowerPoint presentations, maybe building a spreadsheet, that kind of thing, you may never talk to that person ever in your career. I know we have people that we've hired on one of these networks. We hire on several different networks, but one is the Upwork network, and I've never had a conversation with them. They've done work for us for years. There are other people that we talk more frequently, or if we change plans or having a new initiative of one kind or another, we actually will have a conversation. And of course, that's always available to you. But so much of the work that we do is, something like proofreading, and it's very easy to do that. I mean, you're communicating through a system that's kind of like email, so you would do that. So the next part of this is creating that profile. And most people say, well, I'll just cut and paste my resume in there. And that sounds like a perfectly logical thing from a perfectly logical person that you may work with or a well-intentioned friend. But if you do that, you're not likely to get much work, because a profile is absolutely in my mind, 180 degrees to what a resume is. And it's completely different. It's black versus white. It's not um, the same thing. People that are buying freelance talent are not so concerned about the chronology and the total history of your experience. They're more interested in seeing that profile and seeing things that are related to the skills and services that you're going to provide for them. And this is where most people that do profiles go wrong, is they put in everything but the kitchen sink, as you'd say, and a freelance buyer doesn't want to spend the time reading that. We get people in our programs that submit their profile to us for review, and one of the most frequent comments is it's too long, because you have to think about the mindset of the buyer. They're not only reading your profile, but they might be reading 5 or 10 profiles of people that have applied for that particular job. And the longer the profile is, and the more superfluous information that it has in it, the less likely they are to read that. Now, they may be well intentioned and they'll say, well, I'll read some of these other ones and I'll come back to this one. But if they go 2 or 3 down the list and the next person or two has a very short profile that is written in this scannable format of relevant information, not the total body of information, then they're likely to hire that person. And even though they were well intentioned, they wanted to come back to you, they're not. So that's just something to know about that. The third thing, and this is something that most people don't realize as they get into freelancing, like anything else, there's a fair amount of administrative work, especially as you're getting started, because you may not have the systems to track your transactions. And I remember talking to my accountant one day, and he said what a lot of freelancers do is they bring in a shoebox, and it has all their receipts and all their stuff, and they bring it into the office at the end of the year and pay the accountant basically to go through all that. The great thing about online freelancing is that you get all those transactions, and the work that you do is all neatly organized, so you can go in there and basically print out a report that documents every transaction you've had through the year. And that just saves all kinds of time, and you can save that as an Excel spreadsheet or whatever your accountant uses to import it into QuickBooks or whatever it might be. So your entire year's activity comes into the system they're using to prepare your tax return with very little effort, in a matter of minutes, rather than trying to think, gee, what happened? I remember working for this person, but I can't remember exactly what I charged them and exactly how I did it, and that kind of thing. And with this report, you have all that information in there. And the other part of keeping up with the transaction is making sure you get paid. And there was a guy by the name of Howard Shenson. Many years ago, he was called the consultant's consultant. And this is in, I want to say, the 80s. I took a seminar from him, and he talked about that most freelancers, consultants, which are also freelancers, spend 20 to 30% of their time chasing payment for invoices they've submitted. And so that's a lot. The great thing about these online networks is they help you get paid. In fact, with Upwork, the money goes into an escrow when somebody contracts you to do a job. If it's $1,000 job, $1,000 comes off their credit card and goes into this escrow, and then when you complete the job, you get that payment. Now, there's some things that might come along there. You can do milestones. So if it's $1,000 job that goes over 3 months, you can set it up so you get paid $333 a month or whatever, is appropriate for the amount of work. You don't have to wait till the very end of the job. And once the job is completed, either you or your client can mark that job complete. So that's kind of how that whole thing fits together. And within 30 days of the job being complete, that money drops into your bank account. Now, every once in a while, and it's very rare, there will be a client that says the work was not done to their satisfaction or something like that. In that case, you have the opportunity to remedy the situation, and you have the opportunity to do your best to make sure the client gets what they want. There's a dispute resolution process you can go through, and the network that you're on will look at the original job description. It will look what you delivered to the client, and if you're generally in the ballpark, usually that decision goes in your favor. The great news about these networks is there's very few disputes because freelancing is a very personal business, and when you start doing work, and one of the things that we suggest you do if you're writing an article for somebody, say, is that the first thing you deliver is an outline for the article and let the client approve that. And then the next thing might be a first draft of the article, and then share that with the client and get their suggestions on how they would change it, what they would want it to say differently than what you're saying now. And you go through 2 or 3 cycles like that. So by the time you get to the end, the buyer of that article is very invested in how the article turned out, and they've helped you shape it all along the way. So this whole idea of maintaining that transaction, you have an area within most of these networks that when you're doing a specific job, you have a private chat system that you can go back and forth with the buyer on that, and you can upload the drafts and you can take their suggestions through that, or you certainly can jump on a Zoom call or a phone call, something like that. And so that would be the approach that would maintain sort of that transaction within the online system that you're using, and that can be very valuable. So those are the things that I wanted to cover today. I appreciate everybody stopping by. If you have any questions about this will be posted in just a few moments in our Facebook groups and various on our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, we'll monitor those through the week, and happy to answer any questions you might have. I appreciate all the love from Tama and Bob. Welcome. Good to see you. And I know I usually see you on Tuesday night on our freelance calls for our members. So we look forward and always appreciate the love on there. So that's wonderful. Good to see you, and hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.